In January 1935, at the President Hotel in Kansas City, hotel staff entered room 1046 and found a young man battered, bleeding, and barely alive. He had been stabbed in the chest, his skull was fractured, and a cord was bound tightly around his neck, wrists, and ankles. Yet, as he drifted in and out of consciousness, he insisted to detectives that he had simply fallen against the bathtub and that no one else was in the room. The scene presented an immediate impossibility. The hotel staff found the door locked from the outside, a lock that required a key to engage from the hallway. Detectives found the room almost entirely empty. The victim's clothing, his toiletries, and the knife used to attack him had all vanished. He had even checked in under a fake name, leaving the police with no way to identify him. Investigators were left with nearly zero starting material. The only tangible lead in the entire room was a set of fingerprints found on a telephone stand, which ultimately failed to match anyone in their records. The perpetrator left a room that gave detectives no starting point, making it impossible to apply standard 1930s investigative techniques to the case. With the physical crime scene offering no answers, the investigation became entirely dependent on outside leads. The first lead arrived via anonymous, untraceable phone calls to a local funeral home, where a man demanded that the unknown victim be buried in a specific cemetery. These calls were followed by an envelope containing $25 in cash for the grave, along with a delivery of 13 American Beauty roses, signed Love Forever, Louise. Police spent weeks monitoring the cemetery while wearing disguises, waiting for a person who never intended to show up. The focus shifted from hotel records to tracking florists and phone calls, effectively burying the investigation under a series of dramatic distractions. Months passed before the victim was finally identified. Ruby Ogletree saw a newspaper photograph of the John Doe and recognized him as her son, Artemus. This identification revealed a hidden timeline of deception. Ruby received letters supposedly written by Artemus long after he had been murdered in Kansas City. While Artemus didn't know how to type, these new letters were produced entirely on a typewriter, using the shift in medium to hide the fact that someone else was writing them. The deception continued with a 45-minute phone call from a man named Godfrey Jordan. He told Ruby a detailed story about meeting Artemus in Egypt, claiming the boy had joined the crew of a freighter ship to see the world. Ruby attempted to verify the story through the FBI and the Department of State, but authorities found no record of Artemus ever leaving the country or being issued a passport. These forged letters and phone calls achieved a single critical goal. They bought the killer 10 months of silence while the forensic trail went cold. As the case reopened, the investigation split. While the police focused on a circumstantial suspect named Joseph Ogden, Ruby independently tracked her son's friend, Joe Simpson. Ruby's interrogation of Simpson revealed details he shouldn't have known, including the disappearance of Artemis's shoes and school records that placed Simpson in Kansas City at the time of the murder. Detectives dismissed these behavioral clues, focusing instead on their primary suspect, until handwriting analysis eventually proved Ogden was not the man they were looking for. The police remained fixated on a high-profile lead, leaving Ruby to pursue the behavioral evidence on her own. By the time detectives realized their error, the real perpetrator was gone. Artemus Ogletree's murder remains unsolved today because the killer buried the physical facts under a mountain of false psychological clues. This strategy of misdirection surfaced again in 2004 when a library researcher received an anonymous call about an estate being cleared out. The caller claimed to have found a box of old newspaper clippings and a mysterious object explicitly mentioned in the 1935 police files, before hanging up and disappearing forever. The case demonstrates that a murderer can remain anonymous simply by maintaining relentless control over the narrative long after the physical evidence has decayed.